So let me talk to you about this Jean Grey thing, okay? And this, I don't know that I'm right here, okay? I don't know that I'm right, but I think I'm right. And I think this is what it is. And I do think Sadie Sink is playing Jean Grey. And I need to kind of like explain it. I need to explain it. I need to tell you what's going on here. Because I believe, and just watch out for this, chat. I want you to really pay attention to this. I would imagine within the next week or two, the insiders and scoopers are going to tell you that Sadie Sink is playing an all-new original character. And in fact, they're going to tell you her name starts with a K. Okay? And there's no character named this name in all of the Spider-Man mythos. Okay? Here's the thing, though. What I think is going on is something that, even if that's technically true, even if she's technically this new character that starts with a K, and we've never heard of this character whatsoever, she's still Jean Grey. And I need to explain why. I need to explain to you what is happening. Why did I come up with this? What's the deal? Well, one reason is because, Jeff Snyder, who's very good, first had her pegged as Jean Grey. And in fact, I remember he said she was going to be Jean Grey, and then one of the people he said was going to be Cyclops, I think also got cast in Spider-Man. Okay? Which I remember at the time being like, why are these... Like, it almost felt like Feige was watching Jeff scoop this stuff and say, Snyder scooped another new X-Men, fuck it, cast him in Spider-Man so that nobody thinks they're going to be an X-Men. That's what it was literally starting to feel like, where I was like, why are all of the people that Jeff is saying are potentially the new X-Men characters in Spider-Man? What is the deal here, okay? Well, then, in one of their recent Q&As, Alex Perez from the Cosmic Circus revealed this whole thing about how the separated timelines that He Who Remains used to create the sacred timeline, which again, I think is like various threads. When you look at the sacred timeline, even in Loki, it's threads. It's multiple universes. It's not just one. This is obvious if you watch the very end of Loki. It's like, damn, like there's multiples there. Well, what Alex had said was there was a version of the universe before all of that where they're all together. And the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and the Avengers, and the Spider-Man characters all in one universe. Just think of it as like Marvel Comics universe. It's just like Marvel Comics, all of them together. But He Who Remains, after the Multiversal War, separated them all out. Now, what Alex said was that this is why when in the 838 universe, Doctor Strange, our Doctor Strange, hears the Fantastic Four, and he says, didn't you chart in the 60s? Didn't you guys chart in the 60s as a band? But we all know Steven wouldn't forget that shit. He had a photographic memory. He's super into music. He would know for sure if they were a band in their 60s. And yet, he has this vague memory of them. Steven doesn't have vague memories of shit. Anyway, point is, Alex said that the reason that was happening in that scene was because at some level, Stephen Strange remembered what the old universe was like when the Fantastic Four in the 60s were actually the astronauts and went to space and all of that, okay? You got to walk with me on this. It's crazy. The next thing he said was that's why Eric Lyncher is just some guy. And that's why Professor Charles Xavier is just a regular college professor. Okay? Now, keep walking with me on this because it reminds me of the Ultimates comics, which, synergy. A couple of years ago, Marvel Studios did a revamp of the Ultimates universe. And in this Ultimates universe, you had the Maker, an evil version of Reed Richards, recreate a version of the main timeline. I want you to really listen to me here. I'm talking about a story that takes the universe 616 in comics and creates a branch timeline version of it. And you have this guy, Evil Reed Richards, go into that timeline and make it different. He stops the spider from biting Peter. And then 20 some years later, at the age of 36 years old, young Tony Stark is like, hey, Peter Parker, you were supposed to be this hero. This guy's made it so you wouldn't be. That's why you're feeling depressed. You're actually supposed to be Spider-Man. Do you want to be Spider-Man? And then he becomes Spider-Man at 36 years old and gets his powers back, and it's really, really crazy. But if you really think about what that means, it means that you have a timeline that everybody knows, and then you had a dude that could control time, create a branch timeline of it, and fucking prevent certain things from happening. That's exactly what the sacred timeline is, as it is explained via He Who Remains, the Loki show, etc., etc. And then if you take into account what Alex was saying, well, all of a sudden that implies that in different universes, so the way I kind of think of it is like this. It's probably the case that all of these characters need to exist. That is because of eternity. Everything that ever was, will be, or could be is personified in a cosmic entity known as eternity. And I think eternity is somewhat of it's sort of like guardrails for what's possible within the universe of the multiverse. That's how I view eternity. This is where you get some things in the content like the fixed moment in time, the stuff from What If, the episode with Doctor Strange, which, by the way, you know, back in the day before we all got like burnt out on Marvel and Phase 4 and 5, I remember multiple articles saying that Kevin Feige was heavily involved in that particular episode of What If. The What If episode was Supreme Strange, where he tries to break the fixed moment in time with like the books and all that. That was something that Kevin was really, really involved in because it's really important for how things are going to proceed. And then you look at the Across the Spider-Verse movies. What do those movies have? Those movies have canon events, and it's a similar idea. Things have to happen a certain way. If they don't happen a certain way, then it throws off the entire timeline, and the timeline is destroyed. And we know for certain that the Spider-Verse movies and the MCU Secret War plan, those two things, they were working together. That's why in Across the Spider-Verse, when Miguel pops open the web of life and destiny, you see the branch timeline that looks exactly like the fucking timelines in Loki. That wasn't an accident. That was on purpose. And I also know that at one time, Miguel O'Hara was going to be revealed to be working with Kang. 100%. That was real. I've talked about it a couple times. In fact, it wasn't like that was going to be a big, big thing with Miguel O'Hara connected to Kang. Okay, so obviously Marvel's plan for whatever the fuck they were cooking for Secret Wars, because I keep telling you guys, like, yes, things went off the rails, things didn't work, but they always knew they were going to do Secret Wars. Dead ass. When Captain America got on that time platform in 2019, Kevin knew he was going to do Secret Wars. And so a lot of stuff gets set up for Secret Wars. And it seems that one thing that was very important for Secret Wars was this idea of whether it's eternity or not, fixed moments in time, canon events, things have to happen the way that they happen. Now, let's go all the way back to Jean Grey. It would appear, due to the fixed moments in time, and it would appear due to eternity, these characters had to exist. The Fantastic Four have to exist in all the timelines. But I think what Kang did was he made it so in certain timelines, they're just regular-ass people. And yet, if he ripped a part of that out and made a different timeline where they get their powers, it somehow satisfies eternity. It satisfies the needs of the multiverse, the canon events, etc., etc. And so you're sort of able to have them be separated, still exist, not break reality, but not be all together. Because the main thing that we're all thinking is Kang did not want the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and the Avengers teaming up. Isn't that obvious? He didn't want them teaming up, probably because he fought a whole multiversal war, and it was a big fucking problem when they all teamed up. So, let's go back to Jean Grey and Sadie Sink. So, Jeff Snyder randomly reports that she's going to be Jean Grey. Then she gets cast in Spider-Man. Now, one of the things that's kind of interesting about that is Jeff had already said that just like the Russos did with Spider-Man and Black Panther, it was possible they were casting the X-Men characters. And by the way, he doubled down on this recently in one of the shows, so you know it's still real. But he said they're casting them right now, despite what everybody's telling you. And it's very possible they're casting them not just for that movie that Jake Schreier's working on right now, but for other films. Because think about it. How did the Russos set up Black Panther and Spider-Man? In a Captain America movie. in a Captain America movie. That's what they do. They like to do this. So it would make sense because, by the way, another big rumor that everybody's forgetting these days is that the Russos are confirmed to be helping with the Mutant Saga. Now, right now, their hands are very likely full of Brie Larson. I mean, of problems on Doomsday set. But they are helping with the Mutant Saga. What does that mean, helping with the Mutant Saga? It means exactly what we're talking about right now. Okay? So I want you to walk with me on this. And I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong about this. I've been wrong before. But do you see why I think what I think now? I think in a couple of weeks, the Scooper's going to come out and say she's a totally original character that starts with a K. Might even be an Asian-sounding name, to be honest. And she's just going to be some person, maybe a bartender, maybe somebody at college or whatever. But what she really is Jean Grey. She's Jean Grey that never got her mutant powers, that was prevented from becoming a mutant and having her mutant powers by Kang. And Tillman, being in this movie to me, feels like he's Kang. Okay? Now, another thing that makes me really think that this is what it is comicbook.com recently published that whatever it is with Sadie Sink has a massive twist. There's a huge twist that Marvel is desperately trying to keep quiet with regards to the Sadie Sink character. Well, I ask you, what the fuck could be a bigger twist than this? What the fuck else could be a bigger twist than this? That she actually is Jean Grey, and she's going to be Jean Grey after the MCU reboot. And in fact, right now, she's like artificially not Jean Grey. Now, one other part of this that I think is really fucking crazy, okay? Let's say I'm right. If I'm right, and the multiverse is collapsing, then what would be happening to this Jean Grey character? Somebody should know what I'm getting at here. If I'm right, let's just consider that I'm right. You know what I mean? You might be like, no, there's no way. Just for a second, as a thought experiment, consider that I'm right. If I'm right, then what is happening to Jean Grey as the multiverse is collapsing? Anybody? Because this is where it really clicks. She would be having dreams of her more real self dying. Go back to Multiverse of Madness. This is actually really important. So go back to Multiverse of Madness. Multiverse of Madness suggests that all the dreams we have are of other versions of ourselves. And it's not just when you're dying, but yeah, you die in a lot of dreams, and that's other people dying. That's versions of you dying in the multiverse. Wong even says, well, what about that one where I'm like dancing naked or being chased by a naked something or other, and he's like somewhere out there in the multiverse? That's real, okay? America doesn't dream because she's the only one in the multiverse. Now, normally in an infinite multiverse, you probably wouldn't even notice this. It doesn't really matter. What's the big deal? If the multiverse is fucking collapsing, then this Jean Grey, little old Sadie Sink, would be having nightmares of herself with her own powers dying. I mean, come on, man. What a cool fucking way to establish Jean Grey. And I'm not saying they're going to do this because, like, I don't know, bro. It just seems too good to be true at some level, right? But think about it. Dude, what if this character is having these nightmares? What if Peter's having nightmares? What if she's seeing herself in dream after dream after dream, being this powerful mutant character, being a telepath, and dying? Wow. That'd be pretty wild.